Good morning and welcome back to my channel Unwind and Knit with me. My name is Lisa and I'm coming to you from Christchurch, which is part of the South Island in New Zealand. And by default I will always say good morning, but wherever you are viewing from anywhere in the world, hello, and to all of my existing viewers, welcome back and thank you very much for all of your support. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content. If you do, please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and sit back and enjoy it. I have been away. I'm a few days late bringing you this podcast, but I have got quite a bit to go through. So if you haven't already got your cup of tea or coffee or beverage of your choice, maybe you should press the pause button and go and get one and come back with your knitting, because we may be here for a little while. So welcome. Like I said, my channel's called Unwind and Knit with me. You can also follow me on Instagram as Unwind and Knit with me, and also on Ravelry group Unwind and Knit with me. And we do have a couple of threads going which I will talk about, and I actually have a prize to give away for our first challenge in our Ravelry group, so that's quite exciting, so stay tuned for that. I'll start by telling you what I am wearing. This is my budding cardi and it's by Anna Johanna, and for all of my existing viewers, you would have followed me along this journey. There's the pattern there, and this cardigan was my first ever steeking project. I loved it. I love the cardigan. I love the finished object. I wear it quite a bit, and I do often get comments, so that's always a good sign when people comment on what you're wearing. I knitted this cardigan in Southlander Sport Weight, that one there, and that's local to us here in New Zealand. It is a really affordable yarn, so this completed project cost me under $50, and I had wool left over. So a really nice affordable project, and if you are tempted to do your first steek, I would highly recommend it. I didn't really struggle too much with it. It's a little bit scary taking the scissors to it, but loved it and highly recommend it. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. I actually wear it with, I've just got a pair of jeans on and a pair of white sand shoes, running shoes, with a white t-shirt, and it ties the outfit together really quite nicely, and yeah, I feel quite good when I wear this. But in saying that, I may have to take it off halfway through. It's a little bit gloomy here this morning, but it's still quite warm. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. For the viewers that watched my last episode, I went away for about 10 days with my husband, so I thought I'd just give you a quick snapshot at where we went and what we did, because I did have quite a few comments asking to see some photos of where we went. Some of my viewers are quite keen to see some photos of New Zealand. I don't know that they're great photos. I'm not a really good photographer, but we did go to the Nelson Bays area, which is the top of the South Island, and we went to a place called Murray Howe. And if you've heard of, New Zealand has about a half a dozen really good walks, bush walks, and one of them is called the Abel Tasman walk, and you can do that over 4 or 5 days. My husband and I did it about 15 years ago. You put a pack on and you just stay, you walk into different bays, through beautiful forest, beach forest and tracks. And what happens there at Murray Howe, you either start or end there. And what most people do is they arrive at Murray Howe and they jump on the water taxi, and the water taxi takes them right around to the top of the bay, I think, and then over 4 or 5 days you walk all the way back. But an amazingly beautiful part of New Zealand that I didn't walk this time, but that's where we camped up for a few days, and it was just beautiful. Murray Howe Beach is what my husband said to me, it's one of the most tidal beaches in New Zealand. So what that meant is when the tide was out, I would guess 500 metres, like way out. Of course you can't swim, but when it comes back in on high tide, it's beautiful swimming. And I think because it takes so long for the tide to come in, the water actually warms up on its way in, so it was actually quite pleasant, and we went swimming most days on high tide. And the reason I say that is because on a couple of the days we jumped on our bike and we biked over to Takaka, which is a really popular beach for families, and it's not so tidal, but the water was a lot colder. So yeah, so that's what we did. We also actually, I've made a mistake there. It wasn't Takaka we went swimming. Takaka is where we went. So on the second part of the trip, we drove over to the hill, a big hill, to a place called Takaka. And from there, we stayed at Pahara Beach, and we went out and did a fishing charter. And that was a real lot of fun. We went out and we caught snapper and terraki, some really nice fish. And we probably brought home in filleted fish the value of what it cost us to go out for the day. So that was a whole lot of fun. But I will show you some photos of that. And as we were leaving, we come back over the hill and I spotted a farm right on the top of the hill. And we passed it and I said to my husband, turn back, I want to go back. It was a coffee shop, but they had farm animals there, and they had, I think they're a big farm of Gotland sheep. But they also, so they had a couple of animals in a paddock near the coffee shop that you could actually feed, which we didn't feed, but they come up and you could pet them and interact with them. So there was some beautiful Gotland sheep, but there was a big llama there, and I'd actually never seen a llama so big, and I'll put a photo of her in there. Her name was Victoria. So yeah, I'll show you that photo at the end. And the Gotland sheep, what I did learn is it's actually quite a rare breed of sheep for us to have here in New Zealand. So yeah, it was really quite nice seeing that. And they also had some Angora goats, which I'll show you the photos of. So that was, if you're ever going over that hill, the Takaka Hill, this farm is right up on the top there. It was really quite special. So anyway, that was a quick, just a quick intro to my trip. So I hope I haven't bored you for the ones that weren't interested, but yeah, it was a nice time away. And I also feel like I can't say anything more without acknowledging the tragedy, which is the war in Ukraine. I certainly don't want to go on about it, but I find it really quite heartbreaking, especially seeing the footage of mothers and children fleeing the country, and that war is just no good. War is just... I get really quite emotional talking about it, and all I want to say is kia kaha from New Zealand, stay strong, and our thoughts are with you. So yeah, I'm sure I speak for everybody in New Zealand. Also, I wanted to acknowledge this amazing knitting community that I feel that I'm a part of. So on Instagram, there were so many designers and indie dyers that were auctioning and selling yarn and patterns that were donating a lot of proceeds to the Ukraine cause. So whether the money was going to the Red Cross or UNICEF to challenges. And I won't mention them because I know that I'll miss some off, but there were a lot of well-known designers that were saying, well, 25% of all my sales are going to UNICEF. There were dyers that were doing raffles and auctioning wool, but also selling wool, and a percentage of the proceeds going to that really wonderful cause. So I just feel so humbled to be part of this community where there's so many people doing amazing things for charity. So yeah, just to call out, if you want to buy patterns, jump over to Instagram and have a look what some of the designers are doing, and it might prompt you to purchase some patterns from those particular designers that are donating money to such a well-worthy cause. So yeah, kia kaha, stay strong, and yeah, our prayers are with you. Right, so on that note, let's get to some knitting. I might just have my coffee because, like they say, the day doesn't start without coffee. In my last podcast too, I spoke about a knit-along that the Woolly Thistle. Woolly Thistle is a yarn store, an online yarn store based out of America. and they keep amazing yarn. They keep a lot of amazing British and Shetland type yarns, what I call woolly wool yarns. And they started a knit along, and it went from the 18th of February to the 18th of March. And it was a colour work knit along, and so it could be any form of colour work. It was an accessories colour work knit along, so beanies, beret, gloves, mitts, cowls. And I promoted it because I was going to take part in it, and cast on day was the 18th of February, and I was going to be away. And on that day, I got up in the morning and I said to my husband, will you go off for your walk or your run, because I'm going to knit today for a couple of hours. And I went through my knitting basket and I forgot to pack my project that I was going to cast on. So I feel like a bit of an idiot, because I promoted it and talked about it, and I'm the one that hasn't cast on for it. But I've seen some lovely work. A couple of my friends have done the Burness beret as part of it, and I'm a little bit envious, but yeah, good on you if you have taken part in it, and if not, jump on a Facebook or Instagram, and it's the Woolly Thistle cowl, and you'll see some photos of what people are doing. So it's a really good knit along, but yeah, I haven't done it, so I'm sorry if you're waiting to see what my project was. To be quite honest, I didn't do much knitting at all while we were away. I did a lot of reading, which was really nice to kick back with a book. Like I said, let's get into some knitting. So on our Ravelry thread, the main thread that I started this year was called Challenges for 2022. And that was anything that you wanted to knit that was a bit of a new challenge to you. So it may have been your first pair of socks, or your first colour work, or your first beanie, or your first knitting in the round. Anything that you thought, oh, this is a wee bit of a challenge. And so I encourage people to jump onto that thread and talk about what their challenges were, or show photographs. And I've been really lucky to receive a donation of some yarn as the first giveaway. So what I'm going to do with that knit along 2022 challenges is I'm going to do 3 giveaways over 6 months. So I thought I'd do March, April, and at the end of April I'll do the giveaway, May, June, and then July, August. So 3 giveaways over 6 months. And the yarn that I was donated was from Wild Earth Yarns. Now they're a spinning, a mill, I should say, and they're based here in Christchurch, right in my backyard. So that's really exciting. They're a family-owned yarn manufacturer. So it's a husband and wife team that do a lot of the, they're hands-on doing the work themselves. And they use merino, alpaca, mohair, angora and possum. And what they have given me is a sweater's quantity worth of their yarn called Aspen, and it's Polworth, and the actual wool is also grown here in Christchurch, which is really quite exciting. It's at a little farm called Starcrest, and it's based just out of Christchurch in Oxford. So this yarn doesn't even travel far. It actually doesn't leave the South Island for the whole process. And that's sort of from farm gate right through to the finished product. And I should show you the finished product. So, I should take it out of the bag. Sorry, I should have been a wee bit more organised. But this colour, the colour is called Hickory, and it's a beautiful, I don't know, golden brown rust. Can you see that? I'm hoping that colour shows up. It's it's browner than this. This is quite gold, but it's a beautiful yarn. If you jump on their website, you'll get a probably a better idea of the yarn. But I have 12 balls of this to give away, and I'll do that at the end of April. So all you have to do is jump on. But what I wanted to do is I thought, okay, I've got the yarn, I need to match that with a pattern, because personally I don't knit a lot of DK because I find it's just a bit too heavy for our climate here. In saying that, I do knit DK, but not a lot. So I jumped onto Ravelry and I thought it'd be really nice to have a pattern to talk about to go with this yarn. And I found, I'm quite excited about this, so this is a new pattern by Hohi Locatelli, and I really, really enjoy Hohi's patterns, and I would pronounce that T pullover, but it's done in a DK weight yarn. It's got a cable at the back and the front. There's the back of it. So that cable runs through the back and the front. And what she's done, the construction is quite different. You work the left part as one panel and then the right part as another panel. And then it gets pulled together with an I-cord that weaves the both halves together. So that's what I read. She does say that it's suitable for beginners. So if you are looking for a DK pattern, go and have a look at this one. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but it's Hohi Locatelli and it's one of her new patterns. And so what I also did, I had a ball of the wool. This is in one of the other colours. This colour is called Cypress. And it's a beautiful jewel colour. It's not showing up too well. It's a beautiful jewel colour green. And I did a swatch with it. Let's see if this is going to show up. Yeah, that shows up a wee bit better. So I did this swatch. So Hohi asked for a 16 stitch gauge on a 4.5 needle. Which is what I did with this yarn that I'm giving away, and I got gauge spot on. So what I wanted to say is this yarn, Aspen 8 ply, would be perfect for this pattern. And I'll leave all the links below because this yarn is really quite affordable. I think it's $12.95 a ball, and it's and I really want to support it because, like I said, it's local. It's all South Island. It's farmed in the South Island. It's dyed here in the South Island, and it's spun here all in the South Island. And what they did tell me is the total road trip that yarn goes on is only 519 kilometres. So its actual carbon footprint is really quite small. So I am going to leave the link for Wild Earth Yarns and for that yarn, but I am also going to give, I've got that giveaway of the 12 balls of that 8 ply. Yeah, so jump over onto our Ravelry group and yeah, be part of that thread. Yeah, 2022 challenges. I think that's all I wanted to say. Oh, so with that yarn too, it's 100% traceable from farm gate to the finished yarn, which I mentioned, and also it's woolen spun. So it's really good for colour work, really suitable for colour work. It's a bit rustic, it's heathered, but it's very soft, and it's soft to the skin for sure. It's yeah, I'm quite surprised actually. I have wet blocked this and I'm really surprised at how soft it is. So yeah, I am keen to do a project in that yarn. Not this year because, as you know, my knitting journal is full for this year, but I really wanted to talk about that yarn and also our giveaway. So yeah, that's Wild Earth Yarns, and that's their Aspen 8 ply. They also do an Aspen 4 ply in the same colour range. Okay. Like I said, I did have to take my cardigan off. I started getting a bit warm, but I also think it's coffee. I think coffee increases my body temperature. It's probably a sign that I shouldn't drink so much coffee, but hey, like my coffee. So now I want to talk about my whips and my FOs because I do have one FO. surprise, surprise. But first of all, my whip. So this, oh, no it's not. Bear with me. I thought I was very organised. Anyway, my big whip that I've been working on is my Ember. So that's it there. And this pattern is by Shimizu. And I have been knitting this, if you've been following my podcast, I've been knitting this for probably about 2 months now. And I'm knitting it in Yarn Therapy yarn. And this is 90% merino, 10% linen. So that is what I am knitting it with. And last time I spoke to you, I was going crazy because I was knitting with 722 stitches and I was working with 3 different colour yarns, and I was having to carry those floats, and it was, I did write it down, it was 11 rows of 720 stitches carrying floats of 3 different colours with stranded colour work, and it was driving me crazy, but I got through it. I come home from my holiday and I pushed through it. So I'll just hold this up and see. The colours, I'm so happy with the colours. I love this blue. It's like a real jewel blue. And I love the rust, which actually is the main colour. So I have pushed through this section, which is the 720. I've just divided for my sleeves, which is here. And I'll talk about these cables that I'm using. So I have divided for the sleeves, and I'm on my last colour work panel before I start doing the rib, and it's quite a large rib. But once I finish this colour work panel, I'm going to start on the sleeves, get the sleeves done. But I thought I would mention, I love this. Would I knit it again? Probably not. But in saying that, if one of my nearest and dearest daughters or someone said, Mum, I really want one, I probably would. But no, it's easy. It's a really well written pattern, and if you're confident with stranded colour work and a bit of lace, a little bit of lace work, it's a really well written and it's an easy enough pattern. But it's a big pattern. It's a big project. When I had 720 stitches on, the cable I was using on my Chalgu interchangeables was the 125 centimetre cable, and I don't think I've ever used that. Even when I've knitted a shawl, I've never used that large cable. But then I did drop down, so then I got down to 444 stitches, so I went down to a 90 centimetre cable, and now I'm very happy that I'm only working on 370 stitches, and I've gone down to a 75 centimetre cable. So really enjoying this. Now these cables I've talked about in a previous podcast. I got some from Petite Knits, and the original brand is the Knitting Barber, and I know that they have arrived in New Zealand, and there's a couple of stores that sell those. But before they arrived into New Zealand, I actually took it upon myself to do my own, and I ordered some. I ordered quite a few different ones before I was happy with the one I've chosen. I ordered some cables from overseas, and I thought, well, I'm going to do my own brand of these knitting cables. So what I did was, I finally decided on a brand of cable that I was really happy with, and you have to buy like hundreds of meters of this cable, and I bought the little tins, and I've actually branded it with my own brand, Unwind and Knit With Me, and I've called them stitch holder tubes. Now there's 2 1 metre lengths and there's 2 1.5 metre lengths. And what I recommend that you do with the 1.5 metre length is cut that in half, so then you have 2.75 metres. And that's what I've used here for sleeves, is the larger cable cut in half, and I've got one on each sleeve. Now these are a game changer. They make life so much easier. On one of my previous podcasts, I did actually do a wee video on how to use them. I think it was episode 10, and it's about 25 minutes into it. I'll double check that. But there is a little demonstration video on how to use them. It's not hard. You just put your needle onto the end and slide all your stitches on and slide them back off. And when you do slide them on and off, they slide back and they're all in the right direction. So when you go to knit, all your stitches are in the right direction. When I used to use a tapestry needle to put my stitches on hold, and then I'd put them back on my needle, they would always be in the wrong direction, and the first row I'd always have to knit into the back of the stitch. That doesn't happen with these cables. So like I said, I have done my own brand of them. I love my little label, Unwind and Knit With Me, and I have sold these into a couple of knit-in stores who are retailing them for me. I don't have a website or an online store, so I can't sell them myself. So these are available from Willoughby's, the wool store in Rangiora, and also Hands On Sewing and Knitting store in Rangiora, and I'll leave the links below to both of those stores, and I think they're selling for around $22 to $24. There's a pink and a blue, and the colours may vary because my next shipment in I've ordered some different colours. So like I said, you've got 2 lengths of the 1 metre and 2 lengths of the 1.5. They're in this handy little tin, and like I said, they are a copy. They're an imitation of the original, the Knitting Barber. I have no shame in saying that, because at the end of the day, everything eventually gets copied. I spent 35 years in pharmacy, where for 35 years I dealt with generic brands. So the word generic brands or copy brands sits quite nicely with me. But if you do want to support me, you can purchase these from, like I said, Willoughby's or Hands On, and I'll leave the links below. But seriously, whether you buy these ones or whether you buy the original, the Barber's tape, I think they're called, they're a game changer. They make life so much easier for when you want to put your stitches on hold. And also, when you've got them there, they just sit there. It's like a silicone rubber. So I don't know, because somebody did say to me, do you need to tie that in a knot? And I was like, no, you don't. They just sit there and they do not move. There's a long enough tail for them to sit on, and serious game changer. Do get yourself a set, like I said, whether it's mine or whether it's the original. They're well worth the investment for sure. But anyway, that's how I'm going with this. I haven't tried the body on. I'll try it on when I start the rib, just to know exactly how long I want to make it. And I also haven't decided whether I'm going to do the short sleeve. So the pattern is a short sleeve version and a long sleeve. I'm thinking I'm going to do a 3/4 sleeve. That works for me. But she's looking really good, isn't it? So there's a wee bit of pucker in here on this colour work, and I'm pretty sure it will block out a little bit flatter. I was really conscious of spreading my stitches out to avoid this puckering, which is why I used the 125 centimetre cable. But do you know what? It's texture. I'm not going to call it puckering, I'm going to call it texture. And I think it works really well, because the yarn actually has 10% linen in it, so that's got a bit of a rustic texture anyway. When you're knitting with yarn with linen, it's not perfectly flat, it is a little bit textured. So I am not at all bothered by that little bit of texture. And like I said, I do think it will block out a little bit flatter, but I won't be disappointed either if it doesn't. So yeah, it's a beautiful pattern, and I would recommend it as long as you're aware that there is that section, and it's only 11 rounds, but it's a big 11 rounds. But so I'm hoping that'll be a finished object on my next podcast. yeah, really happy with that. And I won't bore you with my other whips because I haven't worked on them. So that's my socks, my half and half shawl, and my Marie Wallen. I haven't done any of my Marie Wallen. That was our other thread on Ravelry this year, is our Marie Wallen knit along. But my plan is to finish that Ember jersey, and then I really want to do a good chunk of my Marie Wallen jersey because I just want to get my hands on that yarn. It is so beautiful, and I'm so excited about my Marie Wallen. So that's my plan over the next couple of weeks. So on my next podcast, that will be an FO, and I should have made some progress on my Marie Wallen. Right, so my other work in progress. So when I was away, I did take a couple of projects, just not all the right ones. And I was quite excited. Here we go. I've talked about this quite a bit, but there's a series of gnomes, and I'm really excited about knitting a gnome. So I took, this one here is Gnome de Plume. This one here. And I'm doing this little fella in a DK. And the reason for that is I've got quite a nice selection of DK coloured yarn, just one ball of each colour. That I wanted to use. So I actually haven't done much. I've nearly finished the his hat. So that's it there. You can see that little bit of colour work. But what I have to say is I am not very experienced on DPNs. I haven't used DPNs forever. I use circulars and I use small circumference circulars. So DPNs, I feel like I'm all thumbs. I don't feel like I'm good at it. And I am getting a little bit of a mark. As I try to pull the stitch tight, the first and second stitch that I knit, when I change from one needle to the other, I do try to really tension it. I don't know if it will kind of block out, but I don't mind either because it's a gnome, it's a little toy. He's not meant to be perfect. He's not something that's going to be worn. So I'm having fun with this, is what I want to say. I'll show you, they're the three colours that I'm going to use for him. So there's a dark blue, the gold and the rust. And it's a really quick knit. I'd cast that on and just did that in a couple of hours while I was watching a bit of TV while we were away. And I dropped my fifth needle, but I'll pick that up later. So that's my other work in progress that's new. And I'll try to make a bit of progress on him over the next couple of weeks. Right, so they're the two whips that I wanted to talk about, but I've got an FO. Yay! I don't get many FOs. Now, this is my second Smorea beret. Now, have a look at that. Isn't that colour? The colours are beautiful and the stitch definition is amazing. Now, this beret is called Smorea and it's by Gudrun Johnston and it's out of her book, The Shetland Trader. But you can buy the pattern on Ravelry and I will leave the links below. It's done in a four ply fingering weight yarn. I'll show you the other side. I block this on a plate. So that's a bit there. I am so happy with this. I'm more happy with this than my original one. But the yarn I used, and that's what I want to talk, I've talked about this before on my other previous couple of podcasts, but it's Purple Sprouting. Purple Sprouting, this is a New Zealand dyer, and she uses Blue Face Leicester. And I think this is a real point of difference because we don't have much, well, I don't know anyone else that does Blue Face Leicester in New Zealand. And she brings it in from England, the UK somewhere, and she dyes it here. And to do this beret, I bought a set of minis. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to show up, but there they are there. And then there was the dark goldenrod and lithium, I think the dark one's called. but there's some of the colours that she does in minis. And for colour work, I really recommend it, and I really want to do a full jersey using this yarn because I think the stitch definition and the colour work is outstanding. So that's it there. So that's my, and I'm not going to try it on because to wear a barrow, I've got to stand in front of the mirror and I've got to adjust it. But anyway, I might get some photos of me wearing it. But I highly recommend this yarn. Like I said, I want to use that yarn in a full jersey for colour work, and I found the pattern. Now, yes, now this pattern, anyway, it's a fairly new pattern on Ravelry, and it's called, I'll pronounce it Iro, I-R-O, and it's by Knitting for Breakfast. And I will leave the link below, but that's it there. So it's fingering weight colour work. It's only ever 2 colours at one time, 2 colour stranded colour work. Let me just, I'm sure I wrote some notes about it. Maybe I didn't, yes I did. Okay, so it uses, in this one she's done here, it uses 8 colours. She's also, there's a picture when you go into Ravelry and have a look of a 2 colour version, which has just been done in black and white. But this 8 colour version, she even goes as far as saying you can use wool from your stash. If you've got a whole lot of single skeins or even part skeins of fingering weight yarn, she says just mix and match and go to your heart's content. Because there's 8 colours, you don't need a whole lot of the one colour. But I would love to do this pattern in Purple Sprouting Blueface Leicester. I think it would be a perfect match. And I am going to ask Paula her recommendations of 8 colours and try to put a kit together to do this. So I know I'm getting a bit sidetracked because I've got other projects that are in my journal that are this year's projects. But this, I just love this pattern. It's the shape and the style that I love that suits me. So it's top down, colour round yoke. It's a little bit cropped, but you can certainly adjust that length. Everything about this pattern, it's got my name all over it. I really want to do it, and I really want to do it in that Blueface Leicester. So if you haven't yet, I will leave the link below, but go over to Purple Sprouting and have a look at her Blueface Leicester. It's, I think, really quite unique. Yeah, so that's that. Let me just check my list. Right, there was one more new pattern that I found that I wanted to share with you. No secret, I love Isabel Primer. I love her patterns, but she's just launched a new shawl, SSP, which is Slip Stitch Party, and that's it there. So if you love a good shawl, I think there's 5 colours, 6 colours. There's 6 colours in this version. If you love a good shawl, I would recommend going and having a look at this. I am not a big shawl knitter myself. I prefer doing garments, but I'm tempted to add this to my list. I just think it's really pretty. Once again, it's only ever 2 colours at one stage. I think, I haven't read the pattern, but going by the name Slip Stitch, it might be one that where you only use the one colour and it's a series of slip stitches. But yeah, so that's Isabel Primer's Slip Stitch Party. I thought I'd share that pattern with you, which is really good. Right, time for a coffee, hang on. Okay, there is, I received this book in the mail recently. It's Shetland Wool Week, and I've always wanted to get my hands on a copy of this. So a friend of ours and I, we shared the postage, and I got the annual 2021. I think she may have got the 2020, and we'll swap, and so we both get to have a look. This is a really beautiful book. The pages are beautiful. The photography is, look at that. That is so sweet. The photography is outstanding. There's some Goodwin Johnson patterns in here, and I love her as a designer. But it's all about Shetland wool, and yeah, it's a really beautiful book. It's not one of the cheapest. I wouldn't call it a magazine, I would call it a book. Yeah, it wasn't terribly cheap, but I would certainly do a subscription to get one a year if they only bring out one a year. Now, I was talking about my purple sprouting, my blue face Leicester, and I've got all these left over in my minis. I've got leftovers. So what I want to do to match my beret, that one there, I'm going to do these Fingerless Mittens, and they're called the Maid's Mitts. A picture there. That's a wee bit dark, but they're a colourwork Fingerless Mitts. I think they'll be a really quick knit. Actually, that's them there on the front cover in a different colourway. I love Fingerless Mitts. I love them in the winter. I wear them a lot. I wear them when I'm driving. I wear them when I'm shopping. I love them, and I would certainly get a lot of wear out of Fingerless Mitts. And so that's my plan with my leftover minis, is to do a matching pair of Fingerless Mitts to match my beret. So I'm not sure when I'll cast that on, but that is the plan. But I did want to show you this book. And the other thing I wanted to show you was, there's this yarn, and it comes out of Shetland. I'm pretty sure it comes out of Shetland. And it's called Uradale Yarns. And that's just their advert that appeared in this magazine. But I heard about this yarn on the Woolly Thistle, and they've interviewed the man behind it. And I really recommend, if you love woolly yarn, if you love the story behind beautiful yarn, I recommend that you go and have a look at his interview. Now, it's on the Woolly Thistle, episode 164, which is a recent episode. And he talks about his practice of how he farms his sheep. So it's not just about shearing the sheep and getting this amazing wool. It's the whole story about how he farms his sheep. And it's such a beautiful story. He's just so, it's all about having happy sheep, happy and healthy sheep. And he talks about his farming practices. So if you love the story behind a nice yarn and you love this type of woolly yarn, go and have a look at the interview. You can buy the yarn, this Uradale Yarns, from the Woolly Thistle, but it's also quite limited because of his farming practices. It's not done on a massive commercial scale. So when you do get his yarn, it's really quite special and it's quite limited. So yeah, that's Uradale Yarns, and it's the Woolly Thistle, and the interview's episode 164. I will leave that in my show notes if that kind of thing interests you. I found it really interesting. At first it was like, oh, it's just an interview, and it was a little bit boring. But then when he got into it, I was just really intrigued. It was a really nice story. Yes. So the next thing. I mentioned earlier on, I went to bear with me, hang on, I've got a mental blank. This happens to me every now and then. Hang on, I'll just check my notes. Sorry about that. Earlier in the episode, I talked about visiting Wild Earth Yarns, which is a manufacturer here in Christchurch. And I did want to have a bit of a chat about that because it's really local to me. But also, from anywhere in the world, you can go onto their online store and have a look at it and purchase their yarn. So that's our giveaway, is from Wild Earth Yarns. But I wanted to talk about this because times are getting tough. Times are getting crazy. And I think it doesn't matter where you are in the world. I mean, at the moment I'm paying $3 a litre for petrol. So this is where I'm going with this story, is like, I think all of us have to look at our budgets and probably buckle down a little bit, because between COVID and what's happened in Ukraine and a whole lot of other world unrests, it's going to affect us all in one way or another, whether it's at the shopping supermarket or whether it's putting petrol in our car. So I wanted to talk about affordability really quickly. Now, I come across this yarn and it blew my mind. So this is Wild Earth Yarns. It's a DK, 8-ply DK, and this is made from 100% recycled yarn. So it's basically made from all the short ends that are finished from a run when they process other wool. And it's beautiful. First of all, I've got to say, it smells like woolly wool yarn. It smells beautiful. It's that nice woolly grippy yarn. It would be perfect for colour work. And the colour, it's just got this real sort of, I don't know how to describe it, heathered, mottly. It's a mixture of colours. It's light brown, but it just seems to have a wee fleck of rust and grey and other colours in it. That's it there. It smells gorgeous. It feels gorgeous. And it's a mixture, like I said, it's all these short ends. So it's a mixture of merino, different wool. So your Polworth, your merino, your Romney. It's also got silk in it. It's got possum in it. It's got all sorts of things in it because it's literally recycled. But they sell this pack of 10 balls, so it comes all wrapped. There's 1,220 metres, so 500 grams, there's 1,200 metres, and this packet costs $30. $30 for this whole pack. And that just blew my mind, and I thought, well, that is affordability in anyone's language. So if you're wanting to do a jersey, what comes to mind for me with this is your basic raglan. You know, your daughter or your son that's going off to university and they want that oversized basic raglan with good, honest, woolly wool. I would be all over this for sure. And I just can't say enough. I think it's beautiful. It feels beautiful. It smells beautiful. And it's $30 a pack. I'm sure their supply is limited. It may be in the shop sometimes and not at other times. But I'll leave the link below. But if you go to it's under their recycled yarn heading. And that's the colour that they have at the moment. It's just called shade number 3. So they may sometimes do a lighter shade and a darker shade. But it's $30 for those 10 balls. So I really had to give that a plug. I thought I just could not go past that. I mean, even if you had to pay that in freight, it's still really quite affordable. And the next thing, this is fun. I've never seen anything like this before. So, once again, it come from Wild Earth Yarns, and I saw these sitting on the shelf. Now, this is huge, like this is bigger than my head. This is 900 grams, and I couldn't even tell you what ply. It's thick. It is super, super thick, and it's 900 grams of merino. And when I went out, I got taken on a little tour of the mill, and I saw hundreds and hundreds of these. So they come in 3 colours. This is the medium colour, then there's the white, which is like a cream, and then there's the dark brown. So it's the natural sheep colour. And they export these to Canada. Like it's a big market for them, and they go off to Canada. And I think she told me they get made into some sort of particular coat. But they do go to Canada. But when I was there, I saw a blanket knitted up in this. Now, I went off and bought myself a pair of 15mm circular needles. Like, these are giant. And I've never knitted anything this thick before. And I want to share it with you because I will show it to you in my next episode. Now, all this blanket was, they started with 1 stitch. and then increased at each end, just, you know, knit into the back and the front. So it formed a triangle. Just garter stitch, knit, 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 with an increase at each end. And she weighed the yarn. So when she got down to 450 grams, she started the decrease. And she ended up with this beautiful rug that would be just perfect for throwing over the back of the lounge. You know, in the winter, you just want something to throw over your feet or your lap. But it actually looked really trendy. It looked like something that you would buy in a gift store or a sort of a home design type store. It looked incredible. So, yeah, I really wanted to share this, and I thought this would be amazing if you had young, you know, like I'm talking sort of 18, 19-year-olds that have never knitted before, and they want to knit something that's a really quick, where they get an instant result. Because I know my daughter would throw one of these on the end of her bed, like for sure. She sits up there and studies or watches TV. It's the sort of thing she'd throw over her feet, that she'd drape over the end of her bed. So I'm going to knit one of these blankets, and I'm probably going to cast it on today. I am so excited, and I'm going to show you the end result. But you can buy this online, and it's $45. 45 New Zealand dollars for 900 grams. And you will need... In the shop, I'm pretty sure she said she used a 12 mil, and I looked at it and I thought, wow, 12 mil, 15 mil. I went and bought a 15 mil. Look at the size of that. It's going to be fun, right? Like, who's ever knitted with needles that big? So that's what I did. I went and bought the needles to go with this wool, and I'm going to knit a blanket. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of fun. But, yeah, if you think that's your jam, I recommend that. $45. Anyway, it sounds like a real sales pitch, doesn't it? But, and it is a sales pitch because it excites me. It excites me that it's something that's so local here in Christchurch, and it's available to us, although it's something that they've contracted to ship over to Canada, but we can buy it here. So that is that. I think I'm pretty well done and dusted. I think I've covered everything. I did want to, now I've just lost everything. Bear with. Yeah, so I did just want to recapture our threads in Unwind and Knit with me on Ravelry. Is 2022 challenges. So pop over there and just say hello and tell us what you're knitting. And I will do that draw. I will talk about it on my next podcast, but it will be the end of April for that yarn. And I do just want to thank Wild Earth Yarns for donating that to me as a giveaway. That's really generous. So that's really exciting. I will do that with a random generator. My daughter's told me that's a thing. I'm sure she'll show me. But, yeah, it will be a random draw, and I will post that anywhere in the world. So it doesn't matter where you live. Yeah, jump on, and I will do that at the end of April. And then I've got another donation that I'm going to give away for May, June, and then also for July and August. So that's that. The stitch holders, if you want to support me, that would be great. You can purchase those from Willoughby's and from Hands On at Rangiora. I will leave the links below. And like I said, they're around, I'm not sure what they're selling them for, between $22 and $24 at a rough guess. So jump over and get yourself a set of those. I often talk about game changers, and when I got back into knitting probably about 6 or 7 years ago, there's probably 3 things that for me were massive game changers. Number 1 was circular interchangeable needles. When I got my first set of chalgoo, complete game changer. The second thing was top down in the rounds. I'm just all over that. I don't think I will ever knit in panels again. I just love top down in the rounds. The other thing that was a big game changer for me was the app called Knit Companion that I use on my tablet. I don't knit ever, any day. I turn that on every day, and that's how I read my patterns, is off Knit Companion. It's a free app, so if you've got an Android tablet or mine's an iPad, complete game changer is Knit Companion. And I would actually put these cables in that category of game changers. Like, they just make everything so easy when you want to put things on hold, especially when you want to quickly put things on hold so you can try it on, and then you just whip them back on the needle. 30 seconds, they're back on your needle and you're knitting again. So yeah, I consider them a game changer. Once again, I really want to thank you, my viewers. This is episode 15, and I never knew that I was even going to get to episode 15 when I started doing it. So I want to thank everybody that has subscribed. We are now over 900, so yay, it makes me really happy. Have over 900 subscribers, aiming for that big magic number of 1,000. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. If you like the content, like it, share it with your friends, tell your friends about it. And leave comments. I do read all the comments, and I do get around to answering all of them. Sometimes it may take me a few days, but eventually I get around to answering them all or replying to them all. So thank you again for everyone that has subscribed. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm not real active on Instagram. I try to post progress of my whips, once every week or 2 weeks, but sometimes just life gets in the way and you get busy. But also you can join us on Ravelry under Unwind and Knit with me. So once again, love and prayers to everyone in Ukraine. Kiha kikaha, stay strong, from us all here in New Zealand. And yeah, let's just share the love and stay happy and be kind to one another. And I will see you all back here in around 2 weeks. Thank you very much. Bye.